if I can say so, not only has it not got anything to do with race, but the bit that Miriam has not mentioned, which it has a very great deal to do with, is religion. This has a great deal to do with religion, and we have not so far discussed the religious aspect of this, because Islamic State calls itself Islamic State for a reason.
Douglas Murray is at it again. In the iconic interview on BBC, he debates a Muslim about policies around how returning jihadists who have committed crimes overseas should be treated by the government and the broader impact of the Islamic religion.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Nanifia Scarlett. Today you're back with another video from Douglas Murray. So today, Douglas Murray silenced Muslim politicians with facts. Okay, so let's talk about your religion. Okay, so guys, without further ado, let's get started.
And if I can say so, not only has it not got anything to do with race, but the bit that Miriam has not mentioned, which it has a very great deal to do with, is religion. This has a great deal to do with religion, and we have not so far discussed the religious aspect of this, because Islamic State calls itself Islamic State for a reason.
Douglas Murray is at it again. In the iconic interview on BBC, he debates a Muslim about policies around how returning jihadists who have committed crimes overseas should be treated by the government and the broader impact of the Islamic religion in Western culture. Douglas Murray argued that the traditional route of prosecution faces significant obstacles, primarily due to the difficulty in gathering concrete evidence against individuals who have committed crimes overseas. As a result, he advocated for a multifaceted strategy to address this issue. He also addressed the elephant in the room, the influence of religion in shaping the views of people who become jihadists. Douglas Murray did not hold back. Watch.
Miriam, why do you say that it's there's a racial aspect to taking away somebody's citizenship if they're suspected to be an Islamic extremist?
Because where are you supposedly sending them back to? Let's take the most recent case of a young man who is who's of Vietnamese origin, but who is a British citizen.
This is the one going through the Supreme Court.
Absolutely, he's going through the Supreme Court at the moment. Britain wants to take away his citizenship. Vietnam says he's got nothing to do with this. He's not a Vietnamese citizen as far as they're concerned. The only reason that we can consider taking away his citizenship is because we do not regard him as fully British. And that was a racialised conception.
If I could just correct that.
Correct me, would you?
The problem about what Miriam's just said, among other things, is you can do the thought experiment another way. Let's say a pseudo-state was set up in another country in the world.
It's not a state.
I know it's not a state. You know it's not a state. They think they're a state. They call themselves a state. And a lot of people who burn their passports or go over to fight for them believe they are a state. Let's pretend another pseudo-state was set up from any other religious or other kind of background. If people from Britain were going to that state of any background or any origin, and they were cutting off people's heads and raping women and children and so on, I think this country would take a rather tough stance about it. And I think, among other things, one of the things we would look at was withdrawal of passports, among other things. If you say you are signed up to this appalling state, then maybe we take you at your word.
Miriam's case is there is a racial element.
But there should not ever be. But I think something Miriam said that we really must come back on is that somebody is not considered fully British.
Absolutely.
You are either British or you're not.
Well, then you can't withdraw somebody's citizenship. They're British citizens, and we have to deal with it.
If I can say so, not only has it not got anything to do with race, but the bit that Miriam has not mentioned, which it has a very great deal to do with, is religion. This has a great deal to do with religion, and we have not so far discussed the religious aspect of this, because Islamic State calls itself Islamic State for a reason. They follow certain principles, misguided in your opinion, misguided in my opinion, but certain principles that they say they derive from Islam.
All right,
and any discussion of this has to take them at their word to some extent.
Well, I mean, I think it's very interesting that we would sort of try and essentialise Islamic State. They're very much like any cult or, if you like, I think you can look at their origins. If you compare them to any sort of cult or gang, there are usually some similarities with the broader concept from which they're derived. So you get cults that are derived from Christianity. Sure. Very similarly, you would say that Daesh or Islamic State is derived from Islam in some way.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is to take things at face value and to corroborate their narrative by accepting their view that it is a state and that they have the legitimacy to call themselves Islamic. It's problematic.
The Waco group in Waco some years ago, everyone was interested in the religious claims they were making when they decided to become this millenarium crazy cult. If I can just finish. This is a crucial thing we cannot avoid. I know it's uncomfortable. I know we want to keep avoiding it. But the religious aspect, which Miriam didn't want to talk about, is a vital part of this discussion. And it's reliant upon Muslims of all kinds to take that on and tackle it. If I thought it was vital, Douglas,
I absolutely would bring it back. But I think what's important is when you look at, for example, these rehabilitation programs, because that's what we're talking about here, is how to deal most effectively with the threat, is that we are talking about using methods that have been shown to be effective in other contexts and with other groups.
Yeah, and those are,
can I just finish? They are methods that have been used in criminology and criminal studies for decades, and they've got nothing to do with Islam. They just happen to be effective.
But ISIS does have a lot to do with Islam.
We're going to have to... Douglas Murray's stance on addressing the complexities of jihadists returning to the UK emphasizes a crucial aspect often overlooked, the influence of Islamic religion on extremism. Murray points out that even if jihadists misinterpret Islam, the religion's perceived influence on their actions cannot be ignored. Douglas Murray has been vocal about the challenges of integrating Islamic beliefs within Western societies, particularly concerning the radical interpretations that lead to jihadist ideologies. He, alongside other commentators like Sam Harris and Ayaan Hirsi Ali, points out that while the majority of Muslims live peacefully, there's a non-negligible fraction whose interpretation of Islam poses a security threat. Harris and Hirsi Ali emphasize the need for a candid conversation about the elements within Islamic doctrine that jihadists exploit to justify violence. Murray's argument is that ignoring the ideological roots of jihadism under the guise of cultural sensitivity not only hinders the fight against extremism, but also fails to protect the values of liberal democracy. I totally agree with Douglas Murray on this one. In a society that prizes free speech, addressing the root causes of ideological extremism is essential, especially when these ideologies stem from religious interpretations that clash with democratic values. Simply enacting policies without engaging with the underlying beliefs can be ineffectual. It's important to foster open dialogues about religion, where constructive criticism is distinguished from phobia or hate speech. We should be able to talk about the influence of Islam on certain people without being labeled as Islamophobic. This is what free speech is all about.
This is basically why when it comes to Islam, or let me say when it comes to Muslims, they are always against Europe, you know, they are always against this Western world, and they always say Europe has failed them. They always say the Western world has failed them because their principle, you know, their religious ideology doesn't really match the lifestyle, the culture, or the principles of this Western world, you know. And, you know, basically one thing that makes this Western world unique is their free speech. They have the freedom to any speech, you know, aside being a hate speech. They have freedom, the right to do whatever they want to do. That's why I always say, whenever you are in a country, you need to, it doesn't matter your religion, it doesn't matter your beliefs or your culture. You need to first of all know the rules, the principle of that particular country you are in. You need to know the beliefs, you know, the culture practice before everything. You know, you cannot because I am Muslim, I have to, yes, I'm not, you know, because I'm Muslim, I'm not permitted to do this. And even though that thing go against that particular country you are in, you feel like, yes, it's my belief, it's my, no, that is not accepted. Even everywhere, that is not accepted. So you need to know the principle of that country, that where you live in, the country first, where you are, before everything. Because last, that's where you come from, you know, that's where you come from. And the lady said it's not advisable to take someone's passport, or, you know, that's why you don't have to let your religious values go against the principle of the mother country you are, and which is a big deal. And the lady was trying everything to avoid the religious aspect of it. And Douglas Murray was so emphasized, and he was really emphasizing on the fact that that religious ideology sometimes affects the country's principles. You know, if you go to Rome, you have to do what the Romans do. You are in Europe, you are in the Western world, you know certain cultures, you know they have certain principles, free speech, you know, freedom to everything. You need to at least go by that rule, and which is very important when it comes to, and that is what the Muslims, especially the Muslims, that is the issue Muslims always have with these European countries. That's a bargain every time, because they wear hijab, and when it comes to the in the Western world, especially the European countries, they are always in support of banning the hijab, and they feel like the British are depriving them of what their culture. They are depriving them of their principles, their religious belief. That's what they believe in, you know. So it's like it's always a debate between the Muslims in Europe, you know. Europeans always say they don't feel safe seeing the women cover up all their bodies in public spaces, you know. And the Muslims are also saying that's their principle, that's their religious belief. We cannot just ignore it because we are in your country. So therefore, Europeans has failed us as a Muslim, you know. So that is something that is a debate. And if this thing is not settled, it's always going to be a debate between these Muslims in Europe. Let me know what you actually think about this video. You think truly Europe has failed Muslims, or you think Muslims, the Islamics, has failed its own people? Let me know in the comment section. If you really enjoyed this with me, don't forget to give your girl a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Don't forget to click on the subscription button for more notifications. Thanks for watching.